Hi, Pastor. Welcome to Investing in the Harvest. My name is Jose Gomez, and I'm the CEO of NetMinistry. We've served 25 years of over 60,000 churches, ministries, and nonprofits. And today, I wanted to go over a webinar here about budgeting for your church's growth. This is a super important topic because we get the question a lot as churches look to invest in either their websites or their digital marketing or their Facebook and Instagram ads. We always get the question of really, how much should I be spending? What's going to help me grow? Should I be spending at all? Sometimes folks think that they don't really need to be spending towards growth. We just kind of believe in God to grow our churches, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and see what we can come up with together. But I want to go through and talk a little bit about what I know about this process. I decided to throw this together and go over it with you. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on introductions. Let's dive right in. This is Investing in the Harvest, a pastor's guide to budgeting for church growth. Let's go ahead and begin. Now let's talk a little bit about what your budget says about your priorities. You know, where your money is, that's what matters. That's what you're investing in. That's what you're putting importance on. And it's really important to understand that even in a church, that is true. Now, budgets they're moral documents. They reveal what we actually believe is important. And regardless of what we say on Sunday morning, they kind of reveal what's true. I just take a moment now to reflect about how that makes you feel. This isn't a condemnation for pastors that haven't set aside an outreach budget, but I want you to take a few moments to just take internal inventory about how this makes you feel. Does it make you feel comfortable? Is it something you already felt, already were convicted about? Is it something you're struggling with? Are you convicted? Are you curious? Are you hopeful? And then, of course, are you skeptical? And if you are, that's fair enough. We're going to look at the data together. Let's talk about two churches here. We're going to talk about Church A that doesn't spend very much at all on outreach. You spend a lot of time on doing things for the community, a lot of time making your environment great, maybe on a building, maybe on staff, maybe on supplies, maybe on Sunday school, but they're not really investing a whole lot into getting the word out to other people about the church, people who don't know about their church, to know about their church. We're going to look at about a 2% spend is what they're spending, right? So maybe out of 120,000 a year that they bring in, so we're assuming this is about a 60-member church, they might be spending a good $2,400 a year on outreach, and they're going to see somewhere between maybe 1 to 2 visitors a month. And that could be 1 to 2 visiting families a month. But over a 3-year period, they tend to plateau. Now, let's look at based on the statistics that we know, based on what we know about not only spending in marketing, but also in what the result of that is and what it is, not just short term, but long term. Sometimes we get stuck in trying to get more visitors or trying to get more people in for a specific event, and then we just forget that long term that doesn't quite work out. But if we're making a consistent investment into the growth of our church, let's see what actually ends up happening. So again, 3-year outcome, we have a plateau here. And we're going to see about 1 to 2 visitors a month, but you're also going to have some members leave. Now, what happens is you start spending, and we're looking at a percentage of your annual revenue. Why? Because that's where the money has to come from, right? It comes from your inflow. You have to allocate an earmark, something for your growth. And so you see 4%, we're still getting we're getting slow growth at 5%. And as we spend a little bit more, and this is allocating it towards getting the word out about your church, we start seeing at about 8%. Now we're going to see about 30 to 50% growth in that church. As we move up in our commitment at 10%, we're looking at, again, a 30 to 50% growth, about 15 to 19 new visitors or visiting families a month. And as we start spending more, we start seeing greater results. And so now you might look at this and say, so if you're a 60 family church, you might look and say 18,000 a year. That's a lot of money, right? But in reality, we're going to take a look at what those numbers actually look like. And maybe there's something that you're spending on that you might be misspending. So let's actually go down a little bit more. Now, this session is not about condemning you for not putting money away. We're just talking about faithful stewardship. We're talking about using the resources that God has given you, not wasting the opportunities to reach people who are searching for hope and community. We're also going to talk about meeting people where they are. Your community lives online 7+ hours a day on social media. If we're not present there, we're not in the marketplace where the people can be reached. As a matter of fact, my phone right now going off is an example of that. A practical path forward is the third thing we're going to cover. So not theory, we're going to talk about actionable steps you can implement, including a done-for-you solution. It happens to be our solution that doesn't require you to become a marketing expert. So I am going to present that here towards the end. We're going to talk a little bit about what NetMinistry can do to help you. All right, so let's go ahead and scroll down a little more. So let's talk about reframing language, right? We talk about marketing, advertising, promotion, expense. All those things just feel like it's not church. It feels like it's business. But in reality, we have the equivalents in ministry. We have outreach. We have invitation. We have proclamation, evangelism, and seed sowing. This is a super important piece. And I want to talk about a slight theological foundation that we have towards justifying these types of terminologies and discussion. A lot of churches, they're under this dangerous myth that if we build it, they will come. Yet, 80% of churches are plateauing or declining. The 75 members is the average church attendance in America. That's not actually members, that's actually attendance. So members may be much lower from church to church. The average church plateaus in 5 years. So in 5 years, they've grown as big as they're going to get, unless they change something. And one thing I've got to dispel is that good preaching alone fills seats. It just doesn't. There's a lot of great preachers, a lot of great ministries, people that love people that have amazing programs, and those programs will go on for a little while and either stay the same for a long time, always hoping and wondering and wishing that they were bigger, or they just die away. And it's not because the people aren't passionate. It's not because they're not good at what they do. It's simply because no one knows that they exist. Organic growth alone rarely produces sustained health. Let's talk about the parable of the sower for a moment in Matthew 13:3-8. So this is a stewardship lesson, and we know this, right? We're pastors here in this webinar. The farmer went out to sow his seed, but the sower didn't wait for the soil to come to him. He went out to the field. That waiting is not a strategy. Just waiting and hoping is not a strategy. We've got to go out. We've got to put out, and we've got to go out to the field to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. The sower distributed seed in the field. It's broad distribution. And this was intentional. He didn't just hoard it. He didn't just put it in one little spot and protect it. It was a broad distribution, got the seed out to the soil. The sower's job, scatter widely and wisely. Strategic distribution, not just randomly hopping from place to place, and of course, hoping that things are going to work. And the harvest depends on both sowing and the soil. So good soil matters, but so does the sowing itself. So you got to be sowing, you got to have that activity of putting seed out, and you've got to be putting it in the right place. And so we got to think about how much seed are we distributing and where are we putting it to? A lot of churches these days are still trying to put billboards up, and they're still trying to put signs up and hoping that people from the neighborhood are going to see it and come in, and then they just don't. And the reason is because that's just not fertile soil anymore. There's somewhere else to be sowing the seed, and to do it often and to do it with discipline. Now, for small churches, especially small pastors who are just starting out, or maybe your church has shrunken down, or maybe it's never even grown. This is a real conundrum, because you want your church to grow, but there's not much being done to get out the word about it. And so you sit in the cycle of just waiting for something to happen, for the 2, 3, 10, 20 members you have to tell other people about your church. But that's not really natural behavior. It's really hard for people to do that in their workplaces and in their family. But also, once they've done it, they've kind of done it. And people aren't networkers by nature. So you're going to have that ceiling you're going to get to. We need to sow on a regular basis. Now, until then, though, we're invisible. And the cost of invisibility, let's kind of talk about that a little bit. So year one, you're excited, word of mouth is growing, friends and family start coming, right? The launch energy is high, you're really excited, very hopeful, everything feels possible because it is. You're at the initial stage. In year 2 and 3, the momentum starts kind of slowing down, right? The low-hanging fruit has been reached. The friends and family, the coworkers, they've all been told. And so your network is tapped. The growth feels a little bit harder, and you work harder but see less results. In year 4 and 5, attendance starts flatlining. And so you face the same thing every single week. The energy starts to wane. Discouragement starts to set in. When are we going to grow? And you see churches around you that are growing like wildfire, and you're sitting there wondering, when are we going to grow past 50, past 70, past 100? What are we going to do to get there? And then in year 5, you start seeing a slow decline because now you've plateaued. You've gone as far as you can go in terms of attendance and in terms of community involvement. People move away during that time. Our lives change seemingly every 5 years. So you see people move away, your giving drops, staff cuts, and the spiral accelerates. And so that's the full timeline of many churches in America. It's why if you last past 5 years, you're truly a miracle. Now, what invisibility costs you? People who would have come don't even know you exist. Families searching for community, they find somewhere else. Years of potential growth lost to the plateau. Giving that would have funded the expansion of your ministry just never gets given, and lives that could have been transformed are never transformed, or they take longer because you weren't there. The question isn't whether we can afford to invest in outreach. The question is, can we afford not to? Now, that's a kind of a cheesy statement. We've heard statements like that before, but when you really think about it in this context, Pastor, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for to invest in your outreach? And maybe you're looking at me saying, I'm investing 10, 15%, and congratulations. But if you're like many of the pastors who are plateauing and not investing, instead you're kind of stuck in debt and you're stuck in the expenses that you're trying to get away from, then you're going to find it really hard to grow. And I tell you, there's churches we talk to, 50, 100 years old, that are sitting on 20 members. And that's not by accident. It's because there's not a lot being done to get the word out. And a lot of times it's because they rely on having been there for so long. Let's talk about what the benchmarks are, though. So 8 to 12% is a growth allocation benchmark, okay? In business, you have to spend about the same, about 10%, 10 to 15% of what you bring in to be able to grow, to continue to acquire customers. With churches and ministries, it's no different. Now, let's talk about where this number comes from. The church planning networks, they recommend 10 to 15% for the launch phase. Okay, so those of you that say, well, we're just starting off, or we haven't even had our first service yet. Well, the burden on you is 10 to 15% to really get that growth really hitting the ground and running. Nonprofit best practices, they allocate 10 to 20% for development and growth. I mean, we're talking about real benchmark numbers. Small business standards are 7 to 12%, as I mentioned earlier before, and healthy church models, various denomination studies support this range. So the principle is simple. Organizations that invest to grow, grow. Those that don't. If you haven't been growing over these last few years, ask yourself, how much have we truly invested from the money that's coming in towards growth? Have we spent it all on the building? Have we spent it all on the wrong things? Did I go full time a little too early? Because if you're not spending that benchmark 8 to 12%, then your priority is not growth. It's something else. And the majority of what you're spending on is your actual priority. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to condemn anybody. But what I'm trying to do is just point out to you that the money's there. There is the ability to do this and to grow, which will then solve a lot of the financial issues that you might be having, or expansion issues, or scalability issues. But we got to get the people in. We've got to get the numbers. We've got to get the resources in. Sometimes it's not so much getting a number of people, but it's getting people, the right type of people in that are going to bring in resources so we can continue doing the work. So 8 to 12%. What counts as a growth investment? So digital advertising, the social media, search ads, community events, okay, with outreach intent, not just community events. Okay, these are ones that have specifically the intent to reach people in the local community who are candidates to come to our churches. Signage and physical presence improvements, welcome and assimilation systems, content creation, so making sure that your information, video and social media is up to date, professional marketing partnerships, and outreach focused staff time. So we're talking about reaching out. That's what outreach and growth investment towards that is counted as a growth investment. What does not count is internal communications like member newsletters, events for existing members only, operational expenses, and building maintenance. None of this stuff, unless it's visitor focused, it counts towards a growth investment. All you're doing is kind of like I painted this to one pastor. I said, you're like a restaurateur. You're like a chef, award-winning chef who created a restaurant in the middle of the woods, and you keep making trying to make the restaurant better, but there's no road to the restaurant. No one knows about the restaurant, and the few people that stumble on it stay a little while and then leave when they're full. So if that sounds like you, if you feel like that sounds like you've been living, then you need to look at how much you've been spending towards your growth investment. And guys, this isn't something that's just random. This isn't something that just only sometimes works. Investing in your growth always works. You got to be out there sowing, and you got to put it out there on a regular basis. And for those of you that haven't taken the step of faith, right? The same step of faith we ask our own members to take financially. If you aren't taking that step of faith towards your growth, if you aren't believing that when you invest in the growth of your church, when you invest in the outreach to people who are potential visitors and members of your church, that God will respond, then you have to stop for a moment and assess what is going on here. All right. So again, I don't want to condemn anyone. I want to encourage you to make the shift because I think it's super important. Let's talk about growth investments by phase. So if you're pre-launch, again, I don't want to hear from anyone, I'm too small, we can't invest, we have no money. Listen, 0 to 50K a year should be allocating 15 to 20% so that you can aggressively grow. Now's the time to invest that type of percentage. So we're looking between $625 to $850 a month is what you should be spending towards growing your church. I hear it all the time. Well, we're a new church. We can't spend that money, but yet then I'll talk to another pastor who spends 10 grand on postcards, and his first service he has 250 people. So, you can come with the excuses, but at the end of the day, you got to look at the examples around you. This isn't new. Other pastors have done this. In the launch phase, right, year 1 to 2, where you're 50 to 150K a year. So that's going to be somewhere, the average annual giving, if you don't know this, for members of churches tend to be about $2,000. That's usually per household. So about $2,000 a year. So when we're looking at a 50K church, then we're looking at about 25 families. If we're looking at 150, we're looking at about 75 families. Well, you should be spending $400 to $1,875 per month on outreach. If you're a stabilizing church, right, you're 3 to 5 years old, you're doing 150 to 300K, so you're at about 150 members, you should be going at about 1,000 to 3,000 a month. And if you are an established church doing 300K and up, you should be at 8 to 10%. You're talking $2,000 to $3,500 a month. You should be spending on outreach, guys, on outreach if you want to grow. And there are times, by the way, to pull it back. Right? Pull it back if you have some internal issues to deal with, if you got some systems to implement, if you feel like your welcome systems aren't there, if you're full to capacity and you need more room and you need maybe to build a building, do that and then move on. By the way, don't build a building before you have the money coming in. That's a really key rule. Keep your costs low, keep your outreach budget as high as you can make it. 15 to 20% if you're new, down to 8 to 10% if you're an established church. Let's talk about your growth budget. So let's just do different scenarios here. 100,000, right? That's a 50-member church, and you want to allocate 10%. We're going to allocate 10%. Your growth budget is 10,000, which is $833 a month. And we'll talk about the MBC level here in just a moment. That's going to be our solution, how we can help you, and that still leaves some money left over. But let's do a few other scenarios. Let's say you are a 60,000 member church and you want to allocate 12%. That's $7,200 a year, $600 a month towards outreach, getting the word out to people who don't know about you. And then we're looking at a $650 a month MVC portion of that we recommend. Let's say that you are, let's go up here. Let's go up to 200,000, right? So if you're 200,000, you really want to push it on growth. You should be spending about 30,000 a year, about $2,500 a month, right? And we're going to recommend that you allocate about 1,000 a month to that towards your digital present, your digital outreach, digital version of that outreach. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. But let's say you wanted to back that down to 8%. You're still looking at 16,000 a year, about $1,300 a month. And this should give you a little bit of an idea here. Okay, if we're looking at 500,000, right? So we're looking at quite a few members in there. We should be spending $40,000 on the low end. If we want to go really aggressive, 60,000 a year, so 5,000 a month. When I have pastors ask me, who's spending 5,000 a month? It's these churches, right? These churches that got $500,000 a year, and they want to aggressively grow to $1 million a year, and they're going to spend 12%. To be able to get that growth that they need, okay? So this is really important. We need to prioritize growth over, I'm sorry to use this word, but vanity. We know God's called you. We know that there's some wonderful things happening. That alone is not going to carry you into growth. Now, I know what some of you say. Before digital, before all this stuff, the church grew other ways, and I completely agree with you. These are different times. People are reached different ways, though. Try doing door-to-door. You could do door-to-door in the 50s and you grow. You could do tent meetings and you would grow by leaps and bounds. Try doing it now. It doesn't work because it's not where the people are. It's not what people are welcoming. It's not what people are receiving. They're not looking up at signs, looking down at their phones. And so that's why digital is so important. But we need to prioritize, and we need to make the shift, and we need to admit to ourselves that the old ways are not necessarily working today. Let's do an honest audit real quick, though. Before any significant purchase, ask these questions. Does this help us reach new people? Right? So before you buy something for the church, does this help us reach new people? Does this serve the community or just our congregation? Okay, because that's going to be a good tell there, whether it's outreach or not. Would a first-time guest notice or benefit from this? The fourth is, if we redirected this to outreach, what could we reach? Who could we reach? How many could we reach? And in 3 years, will this have contributed to growth? And these are important questions to ask. Now, the goal isn't to stop spending it, but to spend it with mission clarity. We want to grow, then we have to spend towards that growth. Let's look at the comparison. So option A, right? You could buy for $400 a month a storage unit of old furniture, but it serves nobody and the ROI is zero. Or you can spend $400 a month through digital outreach, reach 10,000 plus people monthly, and you got new visitors and new families. Let's look at the second option A, $5,000 towards lobby furniture upgrade. Or you can spend $5,000 for the entire year on digital advertising, impact 50,000 plus people, 500 plus clicks, and over 20 visitors just through that effort. All right, so this is wildly different impact. One serves vanity. When I say vanity, I'm not necessarily saying the sin of vanity, but things that don't matter, right? The things that they're just vanity, as Solomon would say. Doesn't really help people. Nobody notices. Maybe a few people notice, but it doesn't really help us to grow. And then the things that do. Let's talk about a few digital marketing fundamentals for churches before we get into too deep here. So 63% of church visitors check online before visiting. There's 7+ hours daily on digital media consumption in the U.S. Churches near me. Is a #1 top local search term, and social media has almost completely replaced word of mouth. If you're not visible digitally, you're invisible to most seekers. Who's visible? The other churches around you who are actually doing the work. There are 2 paths forward now from here. You could decide to do this all yourself. So, you can pursue digital marketing yourself. There's a steep learning curve, obviously. Pastors and volunteers, there's a time sensitivity there. There's inconsistent execution. Everybody starts really excited and then it kind of wanes off and everybody asks what happened to our social media. And then you look, it hasn't been updated for 6 months. Trial and error, you really don't know what to do. So you're just kind of clicking the buttons, hoping something works. And it's often abandoned. Again, after 3 to 6 months, nobody's doing anything with it, right? Think about the church website. Everybody's real excited to create it, and then 3 to 6 months later, nobody goes to it. Now, you could also take the done-for-you approach. So this is where experts handle this part for you. Pastors are free to go minister. There's a consistent monthly presence. There's proven church-specific methods, especially for a company like NetMinistry who's been around for 25 years, and it's built for long-term sustainability. We're not just in this for the short run. We've had clients for 20 years. So we're in this to walk with you all the way into growth and even beyond. So let's talk a little bit about what More Church Visitors actually is. So what More Church Visitors is it's a digital marketing program that's specifically designed for churches. We handle everything. We do the strategy, creative, the targeting, the optimization. You focus on ministry, right? So welcome new guests when we reach them. You're going to reach out to them and talk to them. We're going to be doing this primarily through Meta, so Facebook and Instagram, and then we're going to text you immediately their information, name, phone number, email address, so you can immediately connect with them, follow up with them, and build that relationship. And this is built for churches. So it's a proven method from hundreds of partnerships. This isn't just something that we're doing, not only something that our clients doing. This revolution has been going on. Churches are growing using Facebook and Instagram ads, and we're here to help you do it. We're here to help you do it more effectively and more cost effectively so we can keep that budget in mind. Let's go down a little bit further. So I'm going to give you the pricing right from the go. Our program is $250 a month, right? We take care of the professional campaign management, the church-specific strategy, the ad creative development, the ongoing optimization, monthly reporting and insights. We're giving you a system that automatically texts the information to you and also does automated follow-up for you. It's a really comprehensive service for $250 a month. There's just no other company that even comes close to that price for what we do. It's because we've built it for growing churches. Now, the other part of it is that we have to spend some money with Facebook. So we are recommending a minimum budget of $150. Now, at $150, that's the minimum, right? You'll get about 8 to 15 new visitor inquiries a week. That's 8 to 15 people responding with their information, saying they want to go to your church at $150 a month. If you start doing more, it grows exponentially. We have pastors doing 500 a month or doing 10 responses a day. This goes directly, though, to the Facebook and Instagram advertising. 100% goes into the ads. There's no hidden fees on our part. You control the budget, so you can scale up at any point. And so the total of this is $400 a month. That's the minimum that you're going to be able to spend with us to start getting these results. So $250 to us plus a minimum of $150 to Facebook, and we do recommend doing as much as you can do. So think about that budget, those budget numbers we talked about above. Don't just think about the minimum. Let's look at this. Let's look at this at 300, right? 150 is a good starting point, and we can go down there, right? And so here we're looking at about 5,000 to 8,000 people reached a month. We're looking at about 50 to 100 clicks. We're looking about the potential for about 2 to 4 visitors per month to your church. But if you just go to 300, then you're looking at 4 to 8. Now that's a big difference. Okay, so 12,000 to 18,000 people reached in your community, over 300 clicks coming in. If you spend a little more, let's go to the $500 guys. Now they're getting 6 to 12 visitors a month, and these are families. This is growing your church, and you're seeing good community coverage. Let's just max this out at 1,000. You can do much more, but now you start seeing the picture. Now, you're going to see ads on Instagram from other vendors, their clients, and you're going to see that they're talking about 20, 30 visitors a month or a week. Well, they're not spending 1,000, they're spending 2, 3, 4, 5,000. So you have to scale this to where, and your expectations to where your budget is. If it's at 500 a month, if it's at 350 a month, then you know that you can expect, honestly, this sort of response. Let's talk about building your growth budget. So here are the recommended starting points. If you're a church plant that's under 50K, I recommend starting at the $400 a month level. That's $250 a month plus $150 in ads. If you're a small church, 50 to 100K, then you're looking at 25 to 50 members. Consider doing $500 a month, so $250 a month plus $250 in ads. Now, you don't have to do that. You could always go and do the one that's less and then build your way up. But I guarantee you, if you do a little more, you'll see results faster, and it's going to help to accelerate you. And again, it coincides with this idea of a percentage of your budget as outreach. If you're a growing church, so 100 to 200K, I really encourage you to start at the $650 a month level, so $250 to us. Notice our amount doesn't change. The only thing that changes is how much we're putting into the ads. And then when we look at established churches, you're doing more than that. You really need to be doing 750 plus. If you're a church doing over 1 million, you need to be doing several thousand to be able to continue to grow. And this is a great way to do it. This is really cost effective. When you look at these numbers and then you compare the cost of like sending out postcards and doing weekly or monthly outreaches and all the other stuff, TV, radio, all the stuff, magazines, newspapers. I mean, do they even do that anymore? But yeah, you're going to see this is a really cost-effective way, and it's more effective. You're going to actually get names, real people inquiring every single week. So it's amazing, and it's dependable, it's steady, and it really gets a job done, especially over time. Let's talk about the ROI, because at the end of the day, well, if I spend this money, what's going to happen? What's the real benefit here? Well, let's just say your average family gives $2,000 a year, and we, let's say, bring in 5 families in the year. Your annual investment for something like more church visitors, let's say, is $6,600, and your annual giving goes up by $10,000. You net $3,400 for the year. You win with just 5 families. Let's talk about 10 families. Let's look at more than that, right? You're looking at the fact that this program like this can pay for itself because it's designed to. The costs are designed to as well. So we're not putting you in the red, we're putting you immediately in the green. With just a few families, you end up paying for the program, but this isn't by accident. It's because we're honoring that percentage of your revenue that you should be spending anyway towards outreach. And again, if you're not doing it, this is a big surprise, this is a big shock. You might as well turn this whole thing off if you're not willing to do it, because it's what grows your churches. If you look around at the churches that are growing, don't be jealous. Don't be upset that yours isn't one of them, because they're spending. They're spending on outreach and they're getting the word out. Let's talk about some common objections here. So one thing I hear pastors say is, my people would never support this. And my suggestion is, don't call it marketing. Call it an outreach investment. We need to really think about this. Most members want their church to grow. And so try saying, we're investing in reaching our neighbors. For $500, we reached 15,000 people like this per month. So those are the kind of words that really could help them along. A question I get also is, why should we rely on God, not advertising, right? I get that statement quite a bit. That's kind of a general catch-all statement that pastors say when they don't want to spend for advertising. But Paul chose strategic cities intentionally. That's planning. The early church went to marketplaces. That's outreach, right? Pray as if it depends on God. Plan as if it depends on you, right? God is going to do the work. He's going to cause the increase, but you've still got to sow the seed. Now, another one I get is, we tried Facebook ads once and it didn't work, right? I get a lot of folks that click that boost button, and they tried running ads before and tried putting a Facebook budget in, and they boosted one Easter and then ran ads for another 2 months and then stopped. But one campaign isn't a strategy. One series, one event is not growth. As a matter of fact, churches that do growth or event campaigns only, they actually grow the slowest, because people go to the event, but then the next Sunday, nobody comes back. Have you had that experience? That's why, because all you're doing is getting an announcement out. You're announcing your event. They're coming for that. They're not coming for your church. We want a consistent effort of people that brings people in who are looking for a church. So we need that 12 months of consistency to really see those results happen. Another one is, we're too small to make an impact. Small churches can dominate a 5-mile radius, guys. Micro-targeting means that $150 reaches your actual neighbors, right? We're looking at 5 to 10 to 15 to 20-mile radiuses, depending on where you live. So $150 a month can reach 5,000 people. That's more than your entire immediate neighborhood, right? So again, don't give me the excuse that you're too small. You could do this. So $250 a month for management seems high. That's sometimes I'll get that, in spite of the fact that everybody else is 3-4 times the price. But compare the alternatives, right? You can hire a part-time person to help you with marketing. That's $1,500 to $2,500 a month. A generic advertising agency will charge you $1,000 to $1,500 a month, or some of these specialized agencies that right now work in the church space, or pastors doing it themselves for 5 to 10 hours a month of ministry lost, of time lost, or of the fact that they can't get to it ever. For $250 though, you get strategic, creative management, optimization, and reporting from church specialists. We've been doing this for a long time. We do it in our sleep, and you don't have to think about it. You just watch your phone and see if you got any text messages. And marketing feels inauthentic. This is one that I get as well. It's like, I don't know, it just feels like we're not really trusting God. Authenticity happens in marketing, not by avoiding it. We're showing your real community and extending real invitations. And we're using your pictures. We're talking about you and your culture. So we're being very, very authentic. Whereas the bait we're using is not an offer. It's not something special. It's this is who we are. Click here. Tell us about yourself if you're interested in attending. So people can tell fake from real. We tell our clients all the time, don't give me pictures that are super posed or super professional. Just give us your selfies, and that's what we'll use. Your authenticity is the differentiator. Now, here's the real question underneath the objections. What if we invest and nothing happens? This is actually the biggest concern that pastors have. What if I do this and then nothing? Right? There are no guarantees in ministry and there's no guarantees in marketing, but there is a guarantee in not trying something. And that's continued invisibility. That means you're going to, the plateaus. Now, some of you, I don't put that on you. Could something wonderful happen over the next year, 2 years, 5 years? It has nothing to do with this. And absolutely, right? We're not discounting that. But what we're talking about is the average church in America, right? We've got over 500,000 of them. And most of them have 75 members or less and are not doing well. They wish they were bigger. There's some churches that are 50 and they love it. They're 25, they love it. They're a 12-member house church and they don't want to grow anymore, right? But for many churches, they're trying to have more of an impact. If that's you, that's you. If it's not, it's okay. You can avoid this whole thing by just closing this video and moving forward. But for many pastors, they're hungry for that traction. The question isn't risk versus safety, it's action versus the certainty of stagnation. And we make things safer for you because we've been around. We haven't been around for a year or two. We're not charging tons of money because we're trying to build a business out of this, and this is the only thing we do. We do a lot of things at NetMinistry, from websites to digital marketing to consulting. So this is just one of our product lines. It's why we don't have to charge through the ears for this. Let's talk about some action plans. So this week, calculate your current growth allocation percentage, your trailing 12-month revenue, your current outreach spending, and that equals your percentage. Audit last year's spending. What served insiders versus outsiders? Identify reallocation opportunities. So identify where you can reposition the money to be able to reach out. Have a leadership conversation, guys. You're going to have to do this. Share what you've learned. Discuss priorities and possibilities. Show them this video. Pass it around. But you have to be on the same page. Obviously, listen, we're about God's timing and God's unity. So if that doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. Don't move forward. Have that unity and have the same shared goal and heart. And then finally, schedule a free consultation with us. It's no pressure. There's no obligation. We're just going to have an honest conversation about your church and what the budget looks like for you, and what is practically going to happen. So that's your step. And once you do that, we're ready to serve you. You're ready to take that next step. Is more church visitors right for you? I want to address this right away. You're a good fit. If you're serious about reaching new people, you can commit to $400 to $700 a month. You'll give it 12 months, right? You're going to give it the time that it needs. You're ready to welcome new guests. This is super important. I had a pastor who actually stopped the ads because he said, I realize we're not ready. Like, we're getting all these people inquiring and we're not ready to really receive them or to pursue them. And then lastly, leadership has to be aligned for growth. If you're aligned for defense, if you're aligned to preserve, that's a whole different animal. But if you're aligned for growth, then this is going to be a good fit. Now, today might not be the right time. If there's deep internal conflict that needs to be resolved, if leadership transition is imminent, right? You know that you're about to change some things. There's financial crisis. You're really in a very, very tight budget. No capacity to welcome new guests. And then finally, if you're looking for a magic bullet, this is not a magic bullet, guys. This is one tool in the arsenal We're going to introduce you to people. There's some work to do. You're going to have to connect with them. You're going to have to meet with them. You're going to have to build those relationships. And if you're not ready to do that, this is probably not the right time. Also, if your priorities are different, right? Maybe you're in the middle of a building fund and you just can't, you're just tight. Maybe you're in the middle of something else or some other financial issue. This may not be possible for you today, but it might be in another 6 months. Just don't stretch yourself, but at the same time, make sure that you look at your finances well and make sure that the money's not sitting right there staring at you. And sometimes that comes from actually communicating all this to your members and seeing if they want to contribute. So let's do a quick little readiness assessment. Number one, we're serious about reaching new people. Check. We can reallocate at least $400 a month for growth. Check. We're willing to commit to 12 months of consistency. Check. We're prepared to welcome and follow up with new guests. Check. And our leadership is aligned on growth as a priority. Check. If that's the case, you have a readiness score of 5 out of 5. You're a great fit for our program, and we'd love to be able to meet with you today. So let's get you all set up. We're ready. If you're ready to reach your community, let's schedule you in the consultation. We'll discuss your church's current situation, your community and goals, your budget realities and options. We don't want this to be outside of a reality for you and whether this is even right for you. We'd love to be able to reach you. If you want to schedule your call, go to www.netministry.com/FB. as in Facebook. All right. Look forward to seeing you there, pastors. I hope that this has been helpful to you in some way, insightful to you, and we look forward to speaking with you very soon. Also, if you'd like to give us a call, our phone number is right here, 813-796-5308. You can also send your questions to questions@morechurchvisitors.com. Have a great rest of your day.